Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we had started the Awakenings storyline and we will continue on with that. Yes, we get it, I unlocked locations. This happens every time now. And it's kind of annoying. Status report. Everything is crazy.
Inquisitor,
proceed as usual.
into righteous battle. Allow me to tell you that I regret the rash decision that I made.
We will discuss that incident soon.
We slay who we wilt. Let the Emperor judge the righteousness of our deeds.
During this mission, I will be the judge of what shall be done. Right now, to destroy the world.
Oh good, Thorn, shut up. So, in classic me, I ended up doing my recording, you know, I was just like, oh, I got nothing going on. News is slow. Right after that, I think a day or two later, was the announcement of the new Rogal Dorn class tank for the Imperial Guard. And it's kind of cool. It's a bigger tank. It's... I don't know the exact dimensions, but it's, I'd say, roughly 1.5 Lehman Russes in size. And on one hand, it's cool. On the other hand, and I saw people make this point, it doesn't need to exist. Because the lore is going to sit down and retcon it and say, oh, the Rogal Dorn has been around this whole time. You just haven't seen them. They've been around since the 35th millennium or some stuff, you know. It'll just appear. And the problem... There's a few problems. First and foremost, it's meant to be a really shooty tank. It's got... Oh god, it's got the main turret gun, it's got a pintle-mounted gun, it's got coax, it's got like a second coax, it's got its side-mounted guns. It's guns on guns on guns. And the problem is that is done entirely due to the mistakes of previous iterations, or at least previous editions of the game. Because way back in the day, the Lehman Russ was actually one of the shootiest vehicles. The Imperial Guard was extremely shooty. But the problem obviously being that isn't the case anymore. They actually got so few updates that Lehman Russes became one of the least shooty vehicles. And this Rogal Dorn is meant to just placate that issue. And there's the other issue of there's already tanks that fill this role. The Macarius and the... what's the other one? God, I always draw a blank on these two. The Macarius, I think, and the Malcador. Those two tanks exist to be the primary, you know, tanks. But they're Forge World. And I've never bought Forge World. I've never handled them, so I don't know exactly how they're made. The way I've heard it mentioned, it sounds like they're part plastic or part resin, potentially part metal. Because the big point that I saw being made was the fact that it would take an equal amount of time to make one of those tanks a full plastic version than it would to just make a new one. So they just made a new one. And I understand, but I also think it's really stupid, because you already have something that exists and works. There are some upsides to all this.
I had no other choice.
Baneblade's got a buff. I think it's 4 health. 4 wounds, so 4 HP. More, they went from 26 to 30, which doesn't sound like a lot if you don't know tabletop. But I mean, that's a decent amount. So that's a good thing, but this whole thing is kind of solving a problem that shouldn't have existed in the first place. And it just makes me wonder what the next, like, Band-Aid fix is gonna be. Because that's what this tank kind of feels like, is a Band-Aid to a bigger problem. But time will tell. It's cool seeing a new tank, but I didn't see the point value for it, which is also kind of worrying because you're left in a weird position. If it's just as cheap or maybe a little more expensive in terms of point value than a Lehman Russ, why would you use a Lehman Russ? This thing has so many more attacks and so many more wound rolls, or I guess damage rolls, than a Lehman Russ, that you're better sacking the extra handful of points potentially for just raw damage. And then what's the Lehman Russ become? It's not good enough to be used at that point. The only thing I could see, and it would be insane, admittedly, is to do what they did in Apocalypse. If you went through that rulebook, you could get deployments where it was, I think, 3 or 6 Lehman Russ tanks. The game essentially going, hey, you know, here's this squadron of tanks. Which is cool. But, damn, that would be real hard to balance, because you're either kneecapping their health to make it viable for other factions, or you just created, you know, a blitzkrieg of tanks. And that's not going to be fun for people to play through. And this also does kind of feel weird, since it seems like we're on the cusp of a new edition. So why introduce something now that's probably going to get a rework or slight changes in the next edition anyways? We're just kissing the edge of the new edition, so why? I get it. As I said, I get it. Because if you can introduce something now, you can hammer out some of the flaws for next edition. So there is value in doing it. It also just kind of sucks at the same time. But that's always the curse. Trying to sort out where and when things kind of fall into play and optimal balance times. That unto itself, balancing is a nightmare. No matter what it is. Which I actually saw, kind of speaking to relevance of balance, but more wargaming, and throwing back to things I've talked about in previous episodes, I found a wargaming system that allows you to use Gunpla. It's Gamma Wolves. It is a miniature agnostic system where it's mech combat, which is cool. I think it could use some work, but it's got potential. Definitely has some potential. I'd like to see infantry or small vehicles in the vein of, I guess the best thing would be like Drop Zone Commander, where they're really small, but you have like a row of them. So kind of like Warhammer Epic, if you're familiar with that. I expect people not to be because it's old, and I don't think they've supported Epic in ages. But it's cool. I like the idea. My complaint, because I talked to a friend of mine who really likes Gundam,
Tech priest, I've returned to Thor. We are
you know, fellow Chad Gundam enjoyer. But we're talking about it, and the idea of using Gunpla, he had said, oh, it'd be really cool. We were trying to ballpark our own idea for a system. And I had said part of the problem would be you're going to have to glue a lot of stuff. And you'd have to make separate minis if you really wanted a dedicated Gundam's war game. And he had said, you know, why? And I said, obviously, because you need unified size.
Wait until you
Stand.
Oh. Didn't realize that was the end of that part.
Thorn, you have opened.
Yeah, let's just keep going radical even though we're maxed out. I don't think I can actually dip into both and get both rewards anyways.
You were acting rashly.
Inquisitor, you have a message.
Inquisitor, while we commend.
Okay, now we get to start the second part.
These are the coordinates the Conclave provided. Meanwhile, all scanners and Vox transmissions confirm that this hive is under attack by Chaos forces.
What is this place exactly?
We are steel. We are doomed. We are fighting for our world. And we know no fear.
We have located 3 separate groups of hostiles in the area. Show them no mercy.
Now, as I was saying, size was a big issue. Because if you look at your average Gunpla stuff, a lot of the models are of a couple different scales, and then even within those, there's different heights. An Act guy is not the same height as a Goof or a Dom. A gun tank is different in size from others. So
Inquisitor,
having
would you leave
this
affair to the
is kind of a big
Adeptus
deal.
Between you and me, if it weren't for meddling on that outpost, this might still be in peace. That's at least.
If you are jumping straight into a planetary invasion, can I suggest that at least you call in some appropriate assistance again?
You must be referring to our friend, the noble third.
The pilot of the Crimson Wanderer, indeed.
I like that. Unnecessary
But so size is important for those minis, and I had said the other thing is they need to be kind of limited in their posing, because he had presented the idea of, oh, they'd be really posable, and I said the problem there is you're gonna break them flat out if you're sitting here trying to reposition a model so that they're more pressed against a wall to limit line of sight or something. You're gonna break them, and that's not even including how you base miniatures. Feet are planted. You can't shift them around. At that point, you're borderline playing with action figures if you want to do that much posing.
This is just a lull. Anyway, you must be the Inquisitor who ventured into our ancient outpost. We really need to talk. Later, I suppose. We have incoming.
But yeah, I thought it was cool finding that Gamma Wolf system. Just because it's something new, relatively new, and I was watching videos of people actually doing the painting. One guy took a Goof did some kit bashing to give him a new spear and some other stuff. And it looked really good. He painted it like you would paint any normal Warhammer miniature. And I thought it came out really well. And I'd like to see stuff like that. And honestly, with how... What I would like to see is Bandai just kind of force such a thing to open up and say, hey, this is Universal Century or something, as long as it's not Builders. Builders can go to hell. Is some setting with a ton of different frames ages later and say, yeah, these are just all used by mercenary groups or some governments. The Principality of Xeon came back. Stuff like that. This way, you can have whatever you want. You can organize them how you want. If you want Zaku 2s and GMs played together, you could run it.
Almost finished down here. How are you faring?
Sir, you do need an agent to lead the
I'm only saying that ours is not a huge chapter, and most of our brothers are on covert assignments all over the sector.
That's such a funny statement. Covert assignments for Astartes. These dudes are like 8 feet tall. And wearing power armor. They don't exactly blend in.
So, you must be the Inquisitor who opened up the chest of secrets and terror.
Before you start pointing fingers, you must know that I know all about the Voidrippers.
You don't know anything. You are ignorant of what it's like when your brothers are so overwhelmed with the fury and rage that they slowly succumb to madness and set against you.
I might have some ideas.
It's just so funny. Oh, they're on, covert assignments. They're built like Andre the Giant. Where are you hiding these people? Just silly.
First troop has been eliminated.
A good start, but our work is far from done.
All the violence is gonna create a warp rift or something because it's getting red. I'm also surprisingly not at a very high warp heat. Which has me surprised. And from the episodes before where I was having problems with my damage, I'm doing fine here. Only thing is a little bit of... what is it? Suppression damage. That's the only problem I'm facing. Otherwise damage, yeah, this Skull Taker's going down. I don't get it, man. Oh no, my Space Marine died.
Wiped out.
I'm ready to move against the last battle.
Oh well. Such is the sacrifice of an Astartes. Their life for the Emperor and what have you. Unfortunately, I'm not expecting anything of value, as I say, worth and value at the same time. But anything of value for the loot. I expect all this to be blues, greens, maybe a purple here and there. Kinda wish I could identify them by color, but the shaders that they really insist on putting over the map make it real difficult to identify anything. You can barely see that poison cloud because of how red it is. Yeah, keep opening up rifts to summon more idiots. See how it works out.
reports of a full-scale invasion staged in the local void port, and we are tied up in Sector Zeta.
I could hear some resistance.
Honestly, any help would be most welcome, Inquisitor. I will send you the details.
Oh, I'm full on gear. Okay. Oh yeah, my weekly rewards. We'll look at that one. And it's only... see, if that was a 5-point item, that would be phenomenal. Except for that shockwave psychic power boost, that's crap. But... and the damage reduction when surrounded, that sucks too. But the 9.7 HP unhit per Berserk token. But I think I have Enrage token, so it's useless. Oh well. That would be kind of nice. We'll try this out. Per Berserk token, get Enrage token. I still have not dealt damage to myself with psychic skills. Maybe because they're being... no, because they'd have to be really specific about psychic skills. Whatever. I just won't... I'll trade that out eventually. Also, that kind of sucks for a item. Still haven't used enough inoculators for that. Hang on, I swear I have a replacement for that one. That is offering very little. Yeah, honestly, this... even though it's a 16-point penalty, that is far better. Because I'm not poisoning guys. So that's... I will keep this one because that is really good for my assassin. If my assassin can even utilize it. See, I'm losing 17% bonus damage for AoE skills and heat damage. Can I toss it on one of these? Because that would be the way to go. You know what? We'll just nut up, deal with it. We'll stow this for now, and actually I can stow a couple other things lightning fast. Because I need to get rid of all these. Why do I have you? Whatever, it's getting mulched. Taking the void port, yay!
As we had predicted, the Voidripper scum has launched a global invasion. We have called in several Imperial Guard regiments from nearby planets to gain time until our brothers return. While we are securing the central towers, we need you to purge the entrance to the void port. They have dug among the ancient machines.
Yeah, this is gonna be easy. I do love these missions, though, where you get the AI guys to help. Even though the guardsmen are kind of trash, it's still fun, you know? That's all I really ask for, is a bit of fun when playing. Just sucks because I can already see another wave of guys who spawned up there, and just the way... They already make it... Oh yeah, they did. Guess the game just kind of teleported them. I'll accept it. Best way to deal with it if you have issues with AI pathing. And it makes sense, just bind them to the player, and if the player gets a certain distance away, teleport them, or if certain things are met, just teleport the guys. Okay, so we're gonna go this way, and that's gonna loop around, I think.
The void ship transporting the Crimson Wanderer is now on orbit.
Did they buff those artillery barrages? Because that was really effective. I mean, that was stupidly effective. Those guys got flattened. Or maybe... Nah. I was gonna say maybe it actually condenses the blasts to only targetable surfaces. That would make sense. And then it would have just taken all those scattered shots and just dumped them all at once. This is just making me think about that whole, the Dark Millennium game, again. And how cool it would be to have worlds where you could have a chaos incursion. And you'd have to have very good difficulty, because the idea would be that it's essentially, it turns the whole environment into a raid, where you're just blasting through guys alongside other players. Essentially a world event. And if it's a corn one like this, the more enemies that are killed during the event and the more players who die on the planet, the more chaos spawn, and it gets tougher to a degree. And it could start out as just fighting cultists, and then once enough bloodshed is achieved, then more demons start pouring in, all that. And you could have Vox stations you can capture that'll slow down some of the spawn waves because they're broadcasting rituals or something. That'd be really fun. I wish we would get a good 40k MMO, but I think that's also a very difficult thing.
An old score. In their madness, they think we are the traitors.
because it's a mix. Because do you go free to play and have cosmetics and all that stuff, or do you just say screw it, pay for stuff, and do a monthly fee? Because on one hand, a monthly fee makes sense. You get money up front, you're continuing support. On the other hand, monthly fees do scare a lot of people away, and especially right now in the economy, not the smoothest move. So you gotta come up with something that's more likely to pull people in. And in that case, it's better to go free to play, and honestly, it's cosmetics, I wouldn't care. I just hate when they start really twisting your arm, or when it becomes, oh, you need to buy bank space and weapon slots and all this. The second you start getting into more greedy, strong army approaches, then it becomes a problem. And it would have to deviate from, say, Warframe, where Warframe can get away with just being, for the most part, a small team horde shooter. A 40K game would have to have pretty decent size fights. And then there's the question, loot, especially loot. Oh my god, the loot. How do you do it? Do you do, like this game, a standard ARPG style, you get this bonus to this bonus to this? Do you do a Destiny style weapons roll with perks and that's it? Do you allow rerolls that cost resources? How do you go about all of it? Because I can see a case to be made for every type. Except Destiny. Their loot system sucks. There's a reason people asked for crafting for so long, and then Bungie has bungled it. Mostly because they don't have enough perks, and I think I had said it before, but I'll say it again. What they should have done was make every perk have 4 to 5 rarities. Common, uncommon, rare, legendary, exotic. If you can even have, I like the idea of exotic, generic weapons, but I also really despised it because that's what they kind of cheaped out with in raids later on. Oh, you can get the exotic version of Fatebringer from Vault of Glass. I'm not giving up my exotic for friggin' Fatebringer. As much as I loved that hand cannon, I would rather have an actual exotic that can actually bust dudes in half than, headshot kill cause explosion.
This world must be very.
But at least then you could have the perks, you can reroll reward players for actually grinding up old weapons with enough money costs, or glimmer costs, I guess, in there. You could then incentivize players to sometimes sell them as opposed to deconstruct. There's a good variety that could be done. It just takes time and effort. And admittedly, one problem I do have this still with Bungie is you'll get the people during interviews will go, oh, well, the Destiny I want to make isn't the Destiny other people want. And my first question is, what the hell does that even mean? Because that... I get it on one hand. On the other, how big of a shift would you want for the game? Because I think you can get away with shifting a lot of stuff and still making it a game people want. Invisible pieces of the environment, all because of the stupid tower. Don't know why their collision doesn't fully go away. But back to Destiny, like, my ideas. My ideas are a version of the game I want. Focus more on ARPG elements. This way, players actually have incentive to go back and do older content if they want certain weapons the way they are. Having builder exclusive things, once again, feeds back into keeping old content relevant. Maybe I really want some Ikelos related perks. Okay, cool. I do Mars related stuff, except they removed Mars because something can't compress a game to save their damn life, something file size. Yes, I'm bitter. Bombard this man. Landed a little further ahead than I wanted, but my bombardment still stands.
We have secured the central towers, and you have...
We did it!
I'd call it adequate progress. However, the Voidrippers are closing the net around the hive.
In other words, they have mobilized an entire army against us.
We are moving out to face hordes upon hordes of traitors, demons, and heretical filth. What a glorious way to sacrifice our lives.
May I suggest another solution?
Are you mocking me, Inquisitor?
By no means, Grandmaster. I have a Freeblade Knight on my service, and the Crimson Wanderer is ready to clear the path, the ways of these monstrosities.
Alright, finally they're done talking. Alright, let's knock out all this loot and see what we have left over. I mean, that's not bad. We will save it, because get rid of that damage bonus in exposed state, roll it to something else, that could be good. Yeah, that's kind of crap. The suppression on hit when suppression state is overwhelmed. Kind of useful, but I shouldn't be getting overwhelmed. Alright, and that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button, it helps out the channel a lot, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.